Hey, good morning, everybody. This is kind of a little impromptu Thursday morning live. I don't have a guest today, and the reason for that is I have the multifamily acquisitions boot camp going on this morning. But I did want to go live and just kind of talk about a couple of things. One of the thoughts that occurred to me this morning is consistency. And consistency is really important in everything we do. I actually did a post this morning that said 10,000 hours. It's been said that 10,000 hours doing the same task over and over, the practicing of that task creates mastery. And I asked in that post this morning, who has spent that kind of time? You know, there's master pianists, there's master artists. Michelangelo, they said, spent 10,000 hours painting the ceiling in the cathedral, right? So what are you working on mastering in your life? You know, I always talk about practice. We have to practice what we want to get good at. You know, it's like when I was coaching my son's little league team, I would teach them the grounders, how to field grounders over and over and over again. And, you know, like invariably they would always say, hey, coach, can't we go do something else? Or can't we hit? And, you know, it's the mastering of the basic fundamentals. When I first got into the real estate business as a real estate sales agent, I had gotten some information on a cassette tape from somebody who was really successful. And I listened to that over and over and over again, because what I found was that by that repetitious boredom and being bored, listening to the same thing over again. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's some recording that you have, a video that you watch, you listen to that over and over and over again, and that builds that consistency. It builds the mundane boredom, the repetitious boredom, and it helps you excel at what you're trying to excel at. I remember selling real estate, and when I sold real estate, I would make 20,000 phone calls a year. And I did that, you know, and people would say, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? And I always said that I did that because I wanted to master what I was doing. But I also knew that I made $20 every time I picked the phone up and dialed the phone. But I practiced those scripts and dialogue before I got on the phone. Those 20,000 calls, what they equated to was they equated to 364 listing appointments. And I took 240 listings a year. And I sold 125 listings a year. You know, the people around me were grateful because I gave away all those buyers and only was a listing agent and worked specifically with investors. 70% of my business has all been investor business. Hey, I just want to say hi, good morning to the people online. Cheryl, thanks for checking in. You're right. Emotional wellness, practice what you preach. Love that. But when we talk about practicing, you've got to practice those scripts, those dialogues. How do you handle somebody's objection? You know, do you get nervous when somebody gives you an objection and you're on a sales call? Or do you find that as a buying signal? I always found that as a buying signal. It was a way to handle those objections and to help somebody, you know, lead somebody to a yes, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do in sales, isn't it? We're trying to lead somebody to a yes, to make a positive decision that is going to be a win-win situation, a win for them and a win for you as the salesperson. Objection handling is critical. When we look at why somebody throws an objection at us, how do we handle it? Do you get nervous, or do you handle it with confidence? Do you stand up and say, oh, I agree. I really like what you, or I understand what you're saying. Help me to understand a little bit more about what you see different than what I'm trying to offer you, whatever that situation may be. But, you know, this all comes down to the consistency. I tell people that when you are learning something or you're trying to grow, that you need to become a sponge. You need to absorb everything that you possibly can absorb. You know, if it's scripts, if it's dialogues, if it's training, you need to become a sponge and take those things in and make them part of your DNA, part of who you are. That's how we grow. I always say people don't grow professionally till we grow personally. So, I think there's those four quadrants that we have in our mind. It's, you know what you know what you don't know, you know what you need to know, and you don't know what you don't know. And I think the more space that we spend in that quadrant of you don't know what you don't know really is what helps us to grow, right? Because then we can learn more. We have that room, we have that capacity to take in more. What are you putting in your mind today? Are you reading a good book? Are you uh, participating in masterminds or networking groups? Are you getting out and meeting people and seeing what other people are doing to be successful? But all of these things are consistencies, right? We have to continue to be consistent in all of these actions because that's how we grow. It's just like, if you listen to Gary Vee on social media, he talks a lot about being consistent. He says, hey, you have to post 3, 4, 5 times a day. You have to do live videos three times a day. And these consistent actions are what benefit you in whatever business that you're in. Let's talk about the multifamily business for a minute. As a multifamily investor and someone, I'm a syndicator, and I like to put those multifamily offerings together, go out, raise private capital. I love to work with my coaching clients and students that I work with in doing that. And what I find is that the best deals, some of the best deals are the off-market deals. Well, how do we find more off-market deals? Well, we have to maybe knock doors. We have to have some programs in place. We have to research tax records, and we have to do those things over and over again. But, if you talk to a seller and a seller says, hey, I'm not interested in selling my property right now, well, that doesn't mean that tomorrow they might not be. I've had a lot of situations over time where I would send somebody a letter, just a little handwritten note, maybe saying, hey, I'm a local area resident. I'm looking to buy a property in the area. Are you thinking about selling? And 6 months later, I'll get a phone call from somebody because they throw that letter in the junk drawer in the kitchen and think, well, maybe sometime down the road, I'm going to need it. And when they throw that letter on the side, all of a sudden something happens. The husband comes home from work and he's got a job transfer. The wife decides that, hey, it's time for us to move to a different house. Whatever that situation is, then that property comes up for sale. Maybe there's a medical issue or some type of situation that happens in those people's lives that cause them all of a sudden. See, everybody's life changes every 30, 60, and 90 days. So if you know the right things to say and you practice them over and over and over again, you build that consistency. You start to master what you need to know in order to put a listing on the market if you're a real estate agent, to make a sale of a widget and gadget, no matter what you're selling. Somebody said, Gary Keller said a long time ago, he said that as a real estate agent, you need to be wrapped in a marketing blanket. So you need to be marketing yourself and putting yourself out there. And I always hung on to that because that is in anything that we do, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're selling or what business you're running, you have to continually market. And that's the consistency, right? Consistency is such a big word in everything that we do. And this morning, it just had occurred to me that I just wanted to come live for a few minutes and just talk about consistency and how that needs to work in our lives. And listen, I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable, because if I'm not being consistent moving forward after this, call me out on it. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, say, hey, you haven't seen me in a while. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel or you are following me on social media anywhere and you see me not being consistent, call me out on it. Let me know, because I want to know, because if we're bringing relative content to you, I want you to be able to have that. And the last thing that I really want to talk about is some questions, right? I learned when I first went into real estate sales that there were really just 6 basic questions, that I would ask somebody if I was cold calling or making a call for to a FSBO or an expired listing. And actually, I've sold other products over the years, and I've been able to use these same questions because when you are prospecting like that, you really don't want to ask a yes or no question. You want to ask an open-ended question, something that will cause conversation. So I would call somebody up and say, hey, this is Mike. I'm calling from My Core Intentions, and I'm doing a quick survey in the area. When do you plan on moving? Well, it's really hard to say yes or no to that, right? People have to engage you in some kind of conversation. And then the next question might be, well, how long have you lived at this address? And then where did you move from? And how'd you happen to pick this area? And, if you were going to move, where would you go next? And invariably, by the time you get to that last question or those last couple of questions, you've built some rapport. You've started some communication with these people. So even if they're deciding that they're not going to sell their property today, and that's not a property that you can buy or that you could list, what you're going to find is that somewhere down the road, you keep them in your database, you follow up with them, and that will come back to you somewhere down the road. All right. Well, I hope that's been helpful for you this morning. One last shout out. I'm hosting a multifamily acquisitions boot camp this morning. We're going to go all day. It's a virtual event. You still have time to register and sign up. You can see it scrolling at the bottom. If you haven't signed up and you're not coming, I would love to see you there this morning. Go to mycoreintentions.com/acquisitions. Get signed up. We have a bunch of great people that are going to be there. Actually, last night we had our VIP event. Had a number of people online and really had a great conversation. It was some good networking, some good questions were asked and talked about, open for discussion. So we'll do a lot of Q&A today. I'm going to go for about 6 or 7 hours here today. And I'm going to deliver a lot of deep content. I've been accused a lot by people around me that say, hey, you give away way too much. Well, you know what? That's what it's about, right? I want to see you grow. So even if you're somebody that's listening this morning, you have an interest in real estate, you have an interest in multifamily, you know what? Don't sit on the sidelines. Go start to get some education, learn some techniques, some fundamentals. Hey, even with no experience, I think you can leave this event today, set yourself up for some success, draw that line in the sand and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Be held accountable and go buy a multifamily deal in the next 90 days and put that together for yourself. Whether it's something you're going to house hack or whether it's something that you're going to syndicate, you have the capacity to be able to do that. I've worked with thousands of coaching clients over the years. And what I have found is that consistency, practice, mastery are the things that really will help you excel. So come out today. Join us for the multifamily acquisitions. Even if you can't be there all day, it'll be recorded. Go to mycoreintentions.com/acquisitions and sign up for today's boot camp. A bunch of giveaways, as well as I'm going to have my analyst on this morning. We're going to talk about underwriting. We're going to talk about market data. We're going to talk about how to look at specific markets. We're going to really go deep and bring a lot of content and information. So thanks for being here. We'll be back next Thursday with Thursday Morning Live. I know we have a number of guests lined up for the next several weeks. And what I'd like to say is if you're in Chicago and you know an entrepreneur, a leader, not necessarily even in the real estate business, but of course somebody in the real estate business, I would love to have them on Thursday Morning Live. I would love to interview them, have a cup of coffee with them, and just expose their business, expose them a little bit, and see how we can maybe help benefit them that way. So again, thanks for being here this morning. It was great to be able to connect for a little bit. You have a great day, and I hope to see you in a few minutes at the Multifamily Acquisitions Boot